Hey crafty cuties! I have decided just to make a series of videos showing you the different steps that I take to create my junk journals. So eventually you will be able to see how I completely make a junk journal. So I already showed you guys how to cover the inside with fabric. Now I am going to actually cover each side here with paper. I simply just glue that in, so we're not going to get into that today. I am going to show you how I cover the spine with book cloth, and then I'll just go ahead and finish off with adding a little place for a charm and the metal corners, which are pretty easy, but maybe you are feeling intimidated by it. So to start out here, I am using an altered book right now. I would use the same exact tips if I were making or covering a book that I made from scratch, which I do probably more than 50% of the time. I have some book cloth here. I got this from Collage online. It's a local store here, but you can shop online, and they have really good prices for their book cloth. You can get it other places as well, and you can probably just, you can actually use fabric for this as well. I like this because it has kind of a paper backing, and I find it to be very durable. Now, sometimes I like to keep the original spine, but if you see on this one, there's a teeny crack. It doesn't go all the way through, but since I am making this for someone, I wanted this to be as durable as I can make it. If this were mine, I would probably just keep it because I like this writing, but I don't trust that when someone's purchasing a book for me. So I have already cut my book cloth. I will say this is a little tricky because you have to get the exact right size for, you know, an area that's going to be opening and closing. So I always like to cut it just a teeny bit longer on each side, because when the book is closed, I just find that, you know, it kind of bunches up. So I would say 1/4 of an inch longer on each side, so 1/2 inch longer total. Then for the length, I try to make it pretty dead on. I personally like the original color to show through, so I will keep that a little bit smaller. And I literally just go back and forth by trimming off little bits of a time until I get the perfect size. So no brainer here, I'm going to be using the Tombow Mono liquid glue. This is the best stuff right here. I like to start out by having my book closed, and I like to start by gluing it onto the spine here, kind of like I do for when I'm covering the inside. So I'm just going to add my glue all the way down. Now this book cloth is also pretty thick, so I really don't have to worry about glue showing through on here. Just so you know. But so I'm just going to start out by doing this. Oh, and by the way, sorry, you should have some type of a bone folder as well, or something that can help you kind of get your indentation marks just good. So take your time to line this up. I definitely take my time because I especially want the front side here to be as straight as possible. And since I didn't make my book cloth exact size, you kind of just have to take your time to press it down and make sure it's straight. I would rather have the front be straight than the back, so sometimes, you know, that happens, but a lot of times I'll cover this area with some lace anyways. Okay, so I'm at kind of a weird angle, but I am going to actually just look at the design here and try to see. That looks pretty straight actually. So I'm just starting out by pressing down with my fingers right in the middle here. But now once I know that that glue is starting to adhere, I will kind of close the book and just make sure I know what's going on. Okay, so now I am going to go ahead and go for it. Now this pulls off right here because this isn't all the way dry. I want to do it before it's not dry. Again, just so if I have to move anything around, I do have that time. But I'm telling you, once it does dry, you are good to go. And you can see I'm using enough glue to coat the area, but not too much. So, okay, so I'm gonna close this again just to get that right where I had it. And I will say this takes a little, bit of practice getting it down. Filming it is also not like the easiest just because I'm at a weird angle. So play around until you get this at just the right spot, and then you can start really pressing everything in. I like to hold my book flat down like this and then take the end of my bone folder, and from the inside I like to press down because I really want to make sure that that spine area is starting to hold now, so that I can work on making sure that I have the indent lines. So if you're not sure what I'm talking about, when the book closes, sorry we were not zoomed in, you can see that there's a little area where it dips in, and I find this to be usually mostly on just older books, or when I make handmade books from scratch, there's usually that little area where the book board is not touching. And so I usually start out by taking my 2 fingers, sorry if I'm out of camera there, and start like this. And there has been plenty of times where I got the book cloth on and I was like, oh crud, like I didn't get that indent in, and it's okay. It's going to be okay. It does take practice to get this down, and your book is going to be fine if you don't get that indent in. I personally think that it looks a lot nicer and it's just going to be a lot more flush with your book. But you can always cover things up with lace and pretty trims. Okay, so now I just have the back to glue on, and I'm going to be careful now not to pull that away from the spine because it is still drying, so you know, if I pulled too hard, it could definitely pull off. And you really want to make sure that you have enough glue on the very edge of your book cloth. So, okay. So I'm just going to do the same exact thing now. So I'm just going to press this down, make sure that it's very flush, and I really like holding the book down like this because I feel like it kind of holds everything into place. Now I'm going to take my bone folder and I'm really going to make sure that I am pressing down on those indent areas while kind of holding the book stable here. Do it on the front and the back. And you're going to see now the back, I don't know why I just moved that around so many times. You're going to see that on the back here now, this book cloth is not 100% perfect if you're looking at the design. I mean, it's slightly off. It's not even anything that you would notice, but I do notice those things. And like I said, I feel like that happens all the time when I'm making books. It's okay. This doesn't have to be perfect, and it really, no one would probably even notice that. I just want to point that out so that if that's happening to you, I mean, it's just going to be extremely hard to get it 100% straight when you are, you know, wrapping something around a circular area. Okay, so I would recommend letting this dry now. And so before we make our little spot for the charms, I will go ahead and add the book corners. I got these ones from eBay for super cheap. So I'm just going to, I like to fit them on for a minute just to see, make sure they fit. When I am covering books in paper a lot of the times, these may be a little too tight, and what I will do is take some pliers and just simply open them up. So if you just saw, I added a little dab of glue, and I'm going to do that to all 4 corners. So I will do that and continue on. Just wipe away any extra glue. This is clear, so it's not a big deal if you get a little extra glue. And with these ones, you can actually just pinch them closed. The Tim Holtz ones that I've had, I have noticed that I have to use just some pliers, and I will just squeeze, just hold everything on and just squeeze a little bit so that those prongs kind of close around the area so that they're on there nice and good. And that glue is really going to help as well. So I will just put the last 2 on. So now our book is looking like a book, and it's time to add a little spot for a charm if you wish. I get these by Tim Holtz, and they are called ring fasteners. I have never seen these by a different brand, but I've heard that you can use a brad and then just like a little ring. I'm not sure, I've never tried it. So I like to use these, they're just convenient, but you can also use this same idea to poke a hole and you know, string something through like a tassel or something. Now my book's not completely dry, so I would recommend doing this after it's dry. My kid's playing in the background. I'm going to use my crocodile here and just poke a hole. I did mark a little spot that you can't really see on camera, so I know where the middle is. And I just like to do this. You can use an awl or something sharp. You don't have to use the crocodile. And then I just go ahead and put this through, and then I can easily add a charm. I do really like adding these. They make it quick and simple, and I like how they look as well. So they just go through like that, and then you just spread out the prongs back here. I usually end up adding a little bit of glue on the back just to make sure that it's permanent, not going to get pulled off. There we go. So go ahead and do one last little, you know, pressing over your book areas. Make sure that you have glue along the edges, and I would honestly let this sit and dry for a little bit before moving on, and especially before sewing in your signatures. But there we go, guys. I hope that was helpful to you, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys.